program that you write, and you specifically say that, okay, this is the way the program should be done. I am very much focused on that. Okay, so that is imperative style. Some examples of procedural or pure procedural languages are BASIC, the C program that you have probably learned in your school, C++, Fortran, and some other languages, right? So BASIC, C, C++, all these are procedural languages in nature. Now, before we see other types, now let me tell you, there might be languages that follow multiple or that support multiple styles or paradigms. Say, for example, here in this particular case, I have also put C++ here, right? So C++ is procedural. C++ is also object oriented, right? C is procedural, but C is not object oriented. All right. So I mean to say that you may have programming languages that may support multiple styles, or you probably may make use of a particular approach, right? And also include other approaches within the particular source code. Say, for example, you may start with a procedural style, you may start with an imperative way, and then probably you may also make use of a declarative way, if that particular programming language supports declarative way. Say, for example, C is procedural, but C is not object oriented. So you write C program or instructions in a C program in an imperative style, but you cannot make use of a, say, a functional style or a declarative style. That is not possible. Or a object oriented style in a C language. Whereas in C++, probably you can also make use of, because C is object oriented in nature, so C, you can make use of both procedural and object oriented. Clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
fine. So that is procedural style. The next style is functional style. Now, functional style is a modern style that is used and supported by many modern programming languages today, right? So before we see what a functional style is, or before I just define what this kind of programming style is, can you guys make a guess?
It's based on functions, sir.
Based on functions. Okay, so if you say based on functions, how could you differentiate this with the procedural style? So in a procedural language, can't you have functions? You can have, right?
This one is
Yeah, that's true.
Yes, sir.
this one is more
Yeah.
object oriented.
Which one?
This functional one.
Functional one is more object oriented. Again, it depends upon the language. You may have a particular language, if it supports object orientation, yes, you can make use of object oriented concepts. If a particular programming language does not support object orientation, and if it supports just functional style, right, it is not more of object oriented, it just supports functional style. So what do you mean exactly mean by this particular style? And probably like, how can you differentiate this with procedural style? Because when you say procedural style, it is like you focus on how you actually do, right? And you can have set of statements which also includes functions there, right? But here in this particular style, you specifically say that the style is functional. Somebody said like you make use of functions. It is absolutely right. In a functional style, you definitely make use of functions. You compose functions only, right? But how is it different from procedural style then?
Is it independent from procedure?
Pardon?
Is it independent from procedure?
Independent from procedure, not exactly. Procedures, functions, both are exactly the same thing. But when you come to the style, right, a procedural style and a functional style, both means different thing. Both are different concepts.
Sir, functional is composed only of functions, like you said. Procedural is not. Is that true?
It is and it is not. It is composed of functions, right? You give input to a particular function, you get a appropriate output. In procedural also, you give input to a particular function if you have function, and you get the appropriate output. Right?
Yeah, but sir, procedural function is optional, right?
Proceed. Come again?
in procedural languages, functions are optional, right? For this one, it's compulsory.
It is not. It is not.
It's not?
See, it is not. Yeah, in a functional style also you can have a set of statements. It is not like all these statements are function calls and you just give a function as an input to another function that gives another function and so on and so forth. The data flow, yes, it is composed of functions. You give function as an input. You may you may get a particular result, or you may get a particular function as an output that becomes an input to another function, so on and so forth. That is possible. But it does not necessarily mean that in a functional style, like you just have function calls together. You may also have a set of independent statements. That is also possible.
So where the function should be present, or before the main, after the main, like that?
No. It is not that way. So let me come to that particular point. Yeah.
Sir, are they used for a specific purpose?
It is just a personal preference. It is a style that can be used depending upon the problem that you're trying to solve. If your particular language supports this particular style, and if you feel that, okay, this style looks great to me, let me make use of this style. So it's just a matter of personal preference. Okay. Now, coming to the definition part, and to make things clear, let me first say that programs created by applying and composing functions, they are functional styled programs, right? Now, we want to understand this particular concept so that we probably can differentiate it with the procedural style also. As I had already said, a functional program can also have independent set of instructions, right? Which does not include functions. Right, but for the most part, you make use of functions or compose functions, right? So let me put it in another way. That basically means functions are treated as first-class citizens, right? Now, this kind of style is a very trending style these days. Many modern programming languages make use of this particular style, right? Python also supports functional style, but that is beyond the scope of our syllabus for this particular course. Right, but anyways, since we have the paradigms available as a part of our course, let us try to at least understand what this particular style is. So as I said, functions are first-class citizens. Now, what do you mean by a first-class citizen? Now, if you understand this, it will make the differentiation, understanding of the differentiation between functional and procedural language easier.
More privileged, sir.
Any guess with this particular statement or the sentence, functions are
It's
first-class
the
citizens?
predominant way of composing the program, not independent statements.
Yeah, it is the predominant way of composing a particular program. Can you throw some light on that?
Like in procedural programs, you might use like one function call or two, but then with like lots of statements. When this one use more functions and less statements. Is that correct?
It is partially right. Let me put it this way. So when you say functions are first-class citizens, right? Think of something like this. There are three important points that you probably need to understand when I say functions are first-class citizens, right? First one is, what if your particular program supports, say, you have a function, or say you have a particular variable, right? And you have a assignment statement, something like, say you have a variable X or something like that. Essentially what I'm trying to say is you can assign a variable to a function. That is possible. When I say X is equal to 10, you can do that kind of assignments, right? X is equal to 10. That means that integer 10 is assigned to the variable X, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, I can, if my language supports functional style, I can assign X to a function. Say I have a function called as A, or I define a particular function called as A. So the function name is A. So somewhere in the program, if I want to, and if my language supports, I can say A is equal to X. A
So
is the name. Yeah, I can do an
input for
assignment.
X. So X is the input for A.
Yeah, the value of X can be assigned to A. That kind of assignment is possible.
Oh,
Okay, with examples, probably if time permits, we can see that particular concept in Python, how that could be done later. But please remember this for now. When you say functions are first-class citizens, right, you can assign variables to functions, number one. Number two, Guys, you know, like when you have a function, you can pass in parameters as well. We talked something about parameters earlier, right? Within the parentheses, you can pass parameters or arguments, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So if your language supports functional style, right, that means functions are treated as first class citizens. So the point number 2 is within a function, right, your parameter could be a function itself. That is also possible. Have you ever tried that? Probably not, right?
No, sir.
Yeah, so you can have a function and you can have parameters within the function as other functions. The parameters or arguments can be functions themselves. That is also possible. That is point number 2. Point number 3 is functions may return a value, functions may not return a value. True? True or false?
True, sir.
True, true.
True. So functions may return a value, functions may not return a value, right? So my third point here with respect to functions being first class citizen is you can return a function from a function. Okay, so these 3 concepts, if they are supported in your particular programming language, that means that your programming language supports functional style, right? Now, functional style has got different kind of advantages when you start exploring this particular style and when you start incorporating them in your particular program. But for now, I think you guys understood the concept.
Sir, could you repeat the 3 points once again, sir?
The 3 points are functions as first class citizens. The 3 points are number 1, you can assign a variable to a function. Number 2, you can make use of function as parameters. Number 3, you can return function from a function. All right, clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's continue. Unlike procedural language, wherein I said it is imperative, a functional language is declarative. Okay, so what do you mean by declarative? So as I said, declarative, you focus on the aspect of what rather than how. So in a procedural language, you typically focus, okay, this is how I want to solve a problem. You specifically say the fashion, right? Whereas in a declarative language, right, you focus on what you do not consider, right, or deal with the aspect of how. The implementation details you just don't care, right? So that is called as declarative. And functional programming languages, they are kind of declarative in nature. To give you an example, see, most of the interpreted languages are also declarative. I say most because not all languages are declarative in nature. To probably give you an example, how many of you have used SQL statements? Any idea? Yes, no, what?
I have used, sir.
Okay.
Sir, I want
yeah.
to use.
Some have used SQL statements. I think most of you would have used some kind of commands within the terminal as well, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So within the terminal, you make use of commands like cd, dir, copy, rename, etc. So all those commands, see, when you say dir and hit enter, it shows the list of the directory, right? When you issue a particular command in a terminal, or when you give a SQL command, right, in your SQL prompt, SQL, any kind of tool that you use, Oracle or something like that, when you give SQL commands to fetch things from a database, right? When you give a particular select command to sort a particular set of table or sort all the records, right? You just give the command. You are not bothered about how that particular command is going to work behind the scenes. The sorting could be either ascending or descending, or the sorting approach might be say a bubble sort, a radix sort. You do not know the kind of algorithm that is being used for that particular sorting, right? You just say sort and you get the sorted order, right? So the implementation details, you are not concerned, right? So that is what I am trying to mean declarative, right? So when you say declarative, right, you are concentrating on the aspect of what rather than how, right? So you are not bothered about the implementation details. Clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so functional programming or functional style, they are declarative in nature, right? Some of the examples of pure functional languages are Clojure, Erlang, right? SQL, right? They're all declarative and they're all functional languages, or these particular languages support the functional paradigm. So far, so good. Procedural and functional.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Our next style is logical. Now, what is this logical style? Any guess? Logical style, yeah, if a program, yeah, somebody is trying to say something, please come up with your comment.
Sir, and or not that logical gates.
Yeah, and or not. Typically, if a particular programming language makes use of logical expressions or logical rules and facts, right? Say, for example, predicate calculus, right? You would have have you studied predicate calculus?
No, sir.
No, no.
Okay, so some calculus, predicate calculus, so it is typically a logical form wherein you have a predicate, right? So you have a header and a body, right? It is essentially a kind of if-then condition, right? But expressed in a different format, right? That format is called as a logical form. So that particular logical form in predicate calculus in mathematics, right? They are written in the form of clauses, right? So if a particular language supports those kind of clauses, right, you say that particular language is a logical language, right? Let me try to give you an example. So before giving an example, so logical languages are programs created by sentences or instructions in logical form, right? When you say logical form, right, you essentially mean facts, right, and rules, right? So you specify the facts and the rules of a particular problem or a problem domain, right, in the form of clauses, right? As a very simple example, right, it could look something like this. So if a language supports something like this, or if a language supports this kind of notation, that basically means that particular language is a logical language, right? So this particular thing, this particular line that you see here is essentially a rule, right? So this essentially, this rule actually means that this is valid if these conditions are satisfied. So if B1, B2, B3 till Bn, then H. That is the meaning here, right? And a fact, right, is a fact on its own is written this way, right? So depending upon the particular programming language and the predicate calculus or other logical form that the language supports, right, the languages or those particular languages support these kind of notations to calculate or to solve problems. All right, so they are called as logical languages or languages that support this particular style, right? Some examples are ASP, Datalog, right? Now don't get confused with Microsoft ASP. This is not Microsoft ASP. You would have heard of ASP.NET, right? That this is not ASP.NET. This is answer set programming, right? Answer set programming, Datalog, these both are declarative languages that are logical in nature, right? There is one more which is widely used, which is Prolog, right? Which essentially stands for programming in logic, right? Which supports both declarative and procedural. Okay, guys, so this is the third style, which is the logical style. And our next style is object-oriented style, right? Object-oriented style, you guys should be knowing. Please come up with your answers.
As objects and classes, which they are classified.
Correct. So if you have a particular programming language that supports the concept of using objects, right, and classes, right, it is called as object-oriented programming language, or you can say that the language supports object orientation, right? So as you correctly said, these languages use classes and objects, and they are imperative typically, right? Now, why do I put typically? See, it is for the most part imperative, but depending upon the particular language, right? You may have a particular language that is only imperative. You may have a language that is both imperative and declarative, or you may have a particular language that is mostly imperative but also supports declarative. For example, Python, right? Our programming language that we'll be seeing through the entire semester is Python programming language. Python programming language is both imperative and declarative, right? It supports functional style as well. All right. So that is object oriented and it is mostly imperative. Some examples are Java, which is purely object oriented, right? C++. C++ is also purely object oriented, and Python, right? And other programming languages. Any doubts so far?
No, sir.
Okay, so let me continue. The next one is called as a scripting language, right? Now, what do you mean by a scripting language? Guys, now this is important because see, we will be learning Python in detail, right? You would have probably heard somebody say that it's a Python program, right? Somebody may say that, okay, it's a Python script. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so there is a kind of difference and there is a kind of relationship between a program and a script. So what do you mean by a program and what is a script, or what do you mean by a programming language that is scripting in nature or that supports the scripting style? So for example, Python is also a programming language. You can make use of Python as also a scripting language. So what do you mean by that? Any guesses?
So more
That is both the compiling and interpreter. Both the compiler and interpreter.
Both the compiler and the interpreter. How could you? I just throw two statements. I say that program A is a, or say I can say that this is a program. This is a Python program, right? Another statement, the same program, I say that this is a Python script. So depending upon what you actually understand, right, you can actually differentiate between a program and a script, or depending upon the program that you receive, right, you can differentiate program and script.
So script is something we save in a file and then execute it later.
Script is something that you save in a file and execute it. Program is also something like that. You write the source code, save it in a file and execute it.
It has a different format.
It has a different format. See, think of a script as a set of instructions that are minimal. Okay, so script is something small, right, which runs on a particular environment. That is called as a script. Okay, for example, if I want to make things clear, have you heard of something like JSP, ASP, etc.? If yes, I can make the understanding clear, but if no, also I can go with another kind of example. Have you heard of these things? Web pages, JSP, PHP?
No, sir.
No?
Not really.
No, sir.
Okay, okay. So that is fine. That is fine. No problem. So let me think of another example for a script. Okay, let me give you the example with respect to the command line, right? So with respect to the command line, when you type in commands, right, those are scripts. You can say those commands are scripts. Okay, let me give you an example. When you type the command in your command shell like dir, dir is available to you within the operating system in the form of a script. That is a inbuilt command. You have not written that particular script. That is an inbuilt command that when you actually type gives the appropriate listing of the directory or the contents within that particular directory. Right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So similar to dir, right? You can write your own command and make that execute within the command shell. So those are typically called as shell scripts, right? So the command that you write in that particular window, right, it runs within an environment. That environment is the shell, right? Typically in Unix, Ubuntu and Mac platforms, right, that shell is called as the bash shell. There are different kinds of shell, but the most widely used shell is called as bash shell, right? So you can write shell scripts, right, or you can write bash shell scripts, right, and have that particular script executed when you type that particular command onto the terminal. Your terminal is the interface. Think of the terminal as the interface, the black window that you see in Windows, right? Command prompt. Think of that particular terminal or the user interface wherein you type things. Think of that particular terminal as the interface, and think of the shell that is the engine that helps you to execute those particular commands. All right?
So can you please repeat?
Okay, so I was just trying to give an example so that you guys can understand the concept of what scripts are with respect to shells. Okay, when I say shell, right, think of if you are using Microsoft Windows, when you type CMD in the search bar, what you get? You get a small window. Yes?
Yes, sir. Command prompt.
Yeah, command prompt. That think of that command prompt, right, as a terminal that serves as a user interface. So think of the command prompt as the user interface wherein you guys can go and type something. Okay, so as an example, I say dir. So when you type dir, right, you are typing in the terminal. And when you hit enter, dir is executed and you get the appropriate result. Right? So how that happens is through an engine which is called as the shell. Think of the engine as the shell.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so this particular shell, right, supports scripts, right? So instead of dir, right, so probably you can say Ajay. If your name is Ajay, you can write a script called as Ajay, and if you type Ajay, you will get the directory content. So probably you can write a replica of dir and name it as Ajay, right, that you have actually written, and when you type Ajay, you will get the list of all the directories. Understanding?
Sir, so this is like a function call only, except with a particular keyword.
Come again?
This is like a function call when you use a particular keyword to call the.
Correct. It is something similar to a function call, but you don't say it as a function call, but you say it as a command, right? When you say dir, you don't say dir opening parenthesis and closing parenthesis.
Ah, correct. No variables being passed.
Yeah. It is similar to a function call, but it is a command, right? So this command is available in the form of what are called as scripts, and scripts are small programs that does a particular job.
It was like macros in the Excel.
Something like a macro. Fantastic. Macros in Excel.
Okay.
Yeah, VBA thing. If you know VBA, you write macros in Excel and other Office applications, right? Yeah, think of that. That is another good example. Very good. So is that clear now, guys? So that is scripting. So as I said, scripting language or a language that supports scripting, it is designed for a specific runtime and typically used for automation, right? So you write scripts, typically you write shell scripts in order to solve repetitive tasks, right? And again, scripts are also mostly interpreted in nature, right? Scripts are not compiled, they are mostly interpreted. Some examples include Bash. Your JavaScript is a scripting language, right? VBA, somebody said macros, right? So that is VBA. And yes, scripting, they are declarative in nature, right? So that means that you focus on what rather than how. Clear so far?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Fantastic. So what are the paradigms that we have seen so far? Procedural, functional, object-oriented, and scripting.
Logical.
Yeah, logical. We have also seen logical. Fantastic. The next style is markup. What is a markup language, guys?
HTML.
Fantastic. Somebody said it right. HTML. HTML is a markup language. Now, what do you mean by a markup language? Or why do you say that language is a markup language?
Is it for front-end programming, sir? So why it's called markup?
It is front-end programming. That is why it's called as markup. Any other interpretation? I have put this markup under this particular paradigm, but you cannot say a markup language as a programming language. See, a markup style is not a programming language. Okay, I have just put this style here for the count, but it is not essentially a programming language, right? HTML, see the expansion of HTML, you said it right. The HTML is a markup language. HTML stands for hypertext markup, right? So what is a HTML language, or what does HTML do?
It's used for formatting. It's used for formatting media on a web page.
Yeah, it is essentially for formatting contents or media, right? So you say hypertext markup language. So you have a particular text and you make it bold, you make it italicized, and you structure the elements, right? And for that, you make of elements, right? And tags. Right, you don't write a markup language in the form of a program. You just have your document and you just mark up or tag those appropriate elements or the words, right, so that it is structured, right? So that is the idea behind markup. All right. So as I said, it uses tags to annotate a document. Some examples are HTML, XML, LaTeX, etc. Right? So as somebody said, it is not purely, or it is not generally geared only for front-end kind of stuff. Although HTML is for front-end, right? You have XML. XML is also a markup language, right? It can also be used in the back-end. You have LaTeX. LaTeX is used. Any guesses why? What is LaTeX?
For academic purposes, for processing a document and making it acceptable.
Yeah, it is for academic purposes. Generally, you can make use of this tool, right, as a markup tool to create beautifully designed pages as PDFs, right? You can create PDFs. You can create research papers. You can write your own literature reviews, all those stuff. And if you want the output to be in PDF format as per your style, right, you can make use of this particular tool, LaTeX.
Sir, is it correct to say that markup is for formatting purposes?
It is, yes. It is typically for kind of formatting purposes.
Okay.
And what we are going to see is Python. We are going to learn Python starting unit 2. We are going to start coding and see so many different examples and concepts in the Python programming language, right? So with different paradigms of programming language, right? Python is object oriented, Python also supports functional, and Python can be used in a procedural manner as well. Right? So with this, I can say that Python is imperative. Python also supports declarative style. And Python uses both compiler and interpreter. Right? Although you say Python, okay, now let me come to this particular point. Although you say Python is an interpreted language, right? It has got a kind of inherent understanding, right? That it is both compiled and interpreted. When you say Python is interpreted, it is not the literal statement that you say it is just a interpreted language. It is actually compiled and interpreted. But why do you say Python is an interpreted? I come to the question again, right? The statement Python is an interpreted language, right, actually means it is interpreted, but behind the scenes it is also compiled. But although it is both compiled and interpreted, sometimes you say Python is an interpreted language and you guys know what you're saying, right? Whereas Java, you don't say that. Although Java is both, just to give you an example, although Java is both compiled and interpreted, you don't say Java is an interpreted language. Why is that so? Is my question clear, guys?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So can you say, like, when I say the statement Python is an interpreted language, justify the statement? Any guess? No? You may be wrong, guys, no problem. Try to make a guess.
So because they're short, means they're not, we get the output quickly.
Yeah, you get the output quickly. You are kind of partially right, but can you elaborate on that? How do you say, like, you get the output quickly? In Java also you get the output quickly, but your answer is kind of right. If you explain this particular part, you get the output quickly, it is correct.
So, but in Java, the whole source code is compiled, converted into machine code, and then given.
Hold on. You are kind of partially right and wrong. See, Java, the whole source code is compiled. It is not compiled into machine code. No, it is compiled into a form which is called as a bytecode.
Sorry, sir.
Okay, there is a difference, right? Okay. And this particular bytecode is understood by a particular runtime, which is called as the Java interpreter, called as the JVM, Java Virtual Machine.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
Fine. So Java is also fast. So here it is fast. You are right. Python is also fast. Java is also fast. But then why don't you say Java is interpreted, but you say Python is interpreted? Both are compiled and interpreted. Probably you can guess and tell the answer because you have written some simple programs. You have written some simple programs in yesterday's lab. Those guys who kind of already know this Java concept can probably make a guess.
Sir, functions can't be compiled, no, sir.
Functions can be compiled. In fact, everything is compiled. Let me give you a small clue.
Maybe the
one second. Let me give you a small clue, guys. Those who have done the 7 programs yesterday using Visual Studio Code or any other environment, have you noticed when you actually executed your programs? Have you noticed that you get a particular folder that gets generated with the name something called py_cache or _pycache? Anybody? It happens when you execute a particular Python program, right? Intermediary bytecode gets generated, which gets stored in a folder called as _pycache that gets generated by default. Did anybody notice?
No, not really.
Okay. So that is fine. So what I'm trying to say is, right, when you execute a Python program, right, you get the output immediately. Unlike Java, wherein you take the bytecode and give the bytecode to the interpreter, right?
Okay, sir. To give a quick
Ah.
answer.
Yeah. Whereas in Python, when you execute, right, you, in fact, the compiler generates the bytecode and the bytecode is interpreted by the interpreter automatically and you get the output. Hence, you can say Python is fast. And hence, this happens automatically, right? You say that Python is interpreted. Am I clear?
Okay, sir. Got it.
It's because of the bytecode that.
No, it's not because of the bytecode. It's because the process of generation of the bytecode and the bytecode is interpreted by the Python interpreter automatically. You are not interpreting the bytecode.
So in
Getting it?
Java, you'll get the bytecode as an output, which you have to interpret again.
Yeah, correct. In Java, you
Okay.
get the bytecode and you give the bytecode to the interpreter. Essentially, if you remember in Java, if you have done some Java programming, when you compile a Java program, you get a .class file. Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, .java program gets converted into a .class file, and you give the .class file manually or specifically to the interpreter, so that you get the output. Whereas you don't do these steps explicitly in Python. This happens automatically for you, and hence you say that Python is interpreted. That means that although Python is compiled and interpreted, it is so amazingly fast so that you do not explicitly do these two steps. All right?
Okay, sir. Got it, sir.
Got it. Okay.
So in C++ also we just give run. No, we don't have to send bytecode to interpreter.
In C++, you don't have an interpreter. In C++, you just have a compiler and then a linker. So when you say run or something like that, the compiler compiles your particular program into what is called as an object code. That object code is linked by the linker. So C++ and C, it is targeted towards the machine's architecture. So what you actually get is a machine code. Whereas in Java and Python, what you get is what you generate is a bytecode.
So in Java, if somebody automates that part, then Java can also be called as interpreted.
Yeah, you can, definitely.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. It's almost time, 9:29. So shall we stop here, guys?
Okay, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay,
Okay.
sir.
Yeah. So today we have talked about the different programming paradigms. I think next slide is something else. Okay. So we'll stop here, right? So in this session today we have discussed about the different programming paradigms corresponding to a high-level language.